Fantastic. Welcome to the PYRESWAP show, everyone, from Market Monday, and brought to you and sponsored by Pocket, of course. I want to welcome you guys all today, and can you guys hear me? And can you guys see me? I think on Discord, we still have a video that's loading. Or am I visible on Discord? I am? Okay. So it might just be me. It might just be me. Okay, so I'm visible. Am I also visible? If anybody knows, am I audible and visible on other platforms just because this is a team effort of how we solve technical difficulties in this place? Fantastic. Let's just assume we are. Well, anyways, welcome to another exciting week of PYRESWAP, which is really like the project that is also a story, is it not? And I want you guys to know that I expect today to be a really good week. I already have DMs coming in about, we already have a new type of content that is getting prototyped today. So if you guys have been following our short form channels, our Instagram, Facebook, TikTok channels, you guys have been seeing probably top 5 list content coming out. Today we will have a demo video. We don't know if we'll post it, but it'll be a demo video of what you consider like an economics multiple choice quiz. So effectively, and I'll just talk about the updates of the project first, and then we can talk about macro econ. Make sense, guys? We'll talk about PYRESWAP first, then we'll go into world econ. So legitimately, imagine that a 30-second video. In a 30-second video, it can be an economics quiz, and it can have, let's say, 3 to 5 questions. And of those 3 to 5 questions, we'll say like, what is the USA's central bank called? I don't know if you guys can read that, right? But it says, what is the USA's central bank named, right? And it will just show, is it somewhat legible? I'm fucking, anyways, okay. That's what it says, even if the handwriting is a bit blurry. These gigantic dry erase pens, by the way, which by the way, this is definitely a project investment. These ones that are refillable, you get like ink by like a jug, and what you do is you unscrew the thing and like pour ink into it. I'm gonna do it for the black one here. Actually, probably today I'll buy this ink jug, and it'll give you 3 options. And we'll call A. We'll say it's the Bank of Japan, right? Right, which is obviously an incorrect answer, right? And then B, we'll say it's the I'm trying to think of a Bank of America. And then C, the Federal Reserve. Right? Right, yeah, sorry. Yeah, what is the USA Central Bank named? And we get these 3 options, right? Bank of Japan, Bank of America, the Federal Reserve. Well, the Bank of Japan is obviously not the name. This is, the BOJ, as it's called, is in fact the Central Bank of Japan. I wasn't sure if there's any context there. Now, what's in a name a lot? Bank of America is not the central bank. Bank of America is actually a private bank. I believe it was I did look into Bank of America's history a couple years ago, or maybe a year ago, for the documentary I was trying to make, which I will still make eventually, about certain state-chartered banks that become private entities. And I think Bank of America did come from a bank that had like state powers, but then it kind of like became private only. And then of course the answer is Federal Reserve. Anyways, so if you can imagine like a 30-second video where it gives you questions like these, let's assume that the Federal Reserve is it has no shareholders. It is completely a public utility. And there's a lot of conspiracy theory around this, by the way. I want to say there was a movie called Zeitgeist. Do you guys remember the documentary called Zeitgeist from like 20 years ago? 15 years ago? Anybody remember it? Okay, so at least in the United States, Maddie, Zeitgeist, and it was spelled, I'll erase this. There was this, it was a documentary called Zeitgeist, and believe it or not, this is one of the first like viral videos of that era, because this was a full-length documentary. It had 3 parts. So I want to say they made it like an hour, like it was like a documentary series, and the things that like Zeitgeist was trying to improve, it targeted 3 things. It said 9/11 was an inside job. The Federal Reserve is actually a private entity, and of course that Jesus didn't exist. These were like the three main points of Zeitgeist, and it went very viral because of I think that the internet was not yet saturated with conspiracy theory, and the fact of the matter is 9/11 was a weird enough event for people to kind of like get into it. But the fact of the matter is that Zeitgeist got a whole bunch of shit wrong, like in all three areas. So the point being is that Zeitgeist was the documentary that spread a lot of conspiracy theories around the Federal Reserve. Now, there's a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. So if you want to know about the Federal Reserve, there's a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is a bit more objective. So I have this book, and I've read maybe like a quarter of it. It still gets things correct, but then yeah. So I'll tell you this: The Creature from Jekyll Island gets things correct, but then it doesn't get certain context correct. So like lots of people, when they think about the Federal Reserve, they think, oh, the Federal Reserve, that's the one that Rockefeller was behind, right? And they think that like Rockefeller himself was like shadow puppeting the central bank. This is not what happened at all. So Rockefeller had a son named Rockefeller Jr. Rockefeller Jr. got married, and his wife was related to a guy named Nelson Aldrich. Nelson Aldrich was a United States senator, and he's one of the main figures of the Federal Reserve. Does that make sense? The Federal Reserve's inception. But like, just because they're all married to each other does not mean that like Rockefeller's business model was like, hey, we're gonna take over banking now, because I don't even know. Yeah, like yeah, like I'll tell you this. People make these decision-making shortcuts in their head, and they cut these associations. And I want you guys to know, like right now myself, you guys might know that I'm the executive director of the John Mackey Foundation. The wrong type of context, somebody could be convinced that like, you know, you could make sense. It could make sense that like, oh, terminal utility, that was a thing that John McAfee was behind. There's no real connection between John McAfee supporting terminal utility. You get what I'm saying? Like, even though his projects had it too, you can always like do a family tree of association that kind of makes things obfuscated and confusing. Does that make sense to you guys? Does that make sense? Like it gets ambiguous. But the point being is, the Federal Reserve does not have any private shareholders. And the reason being this matters, Maddie, is because this was actually like a brand new idea. So before the United States and during, okay. Public property as a concept is not that old. Does that make sense? Because thinking about something being owned by something that doesn't exactly have somebody you can go ask for it. This is not something that animals think about. Do you guys get what I'm saying? It's like you create this intangible entity, and this entity has holdings. Does that make sense? So I want you guys to know, before there was public property, there was what? Do you guys know? Here, I'll write it out for you guys. Royal property. Do you guys know this? How does that look on the screen? Is nice. That looks amazing with the lighting. The red marker under these lighting just pops. We'll keep that in mind. This looks extremely legible. Royal property. So it wasn't like if you polluted in the river, it wasn't like you polluted in the river that everybody uses. It's like you polluted in the King's River. Does that make sense? Right? Do you guys get it? Like the king owns that river. So the fact of the matter is, the royal family, like the royals, the king specifically, they had the right to tax, but they had the right to also trade. So like anything the kings wanted, they could just seize as part of like royal dues. Does that make sense? They didn't really outline this until, you know, recent centuries. So the point being is, public property, for instance, in England, in what became Great Britain, the Bank of England, before it became the Bank of England, it was just like the Royal Bank of England. Does that make sense? I actually don't know if it was called the Royal Bank of England because I didn't get into that part of the history of England. I know probably more about. Okay, I probably know more about the British history of banking than the average British person, but I definitely don't know it like I know America's. I'll definitely learn Britain too because it matters. It matters very much to the American history as well. But I want you guys to know before it became the Bank of England and it was like a public entity, it was a royal entity. Does that make sense? It belonged to Her Majesty's Bank, right? In fact, did you guys know that in the Navy, in the United States Navy, ships have a prefix, and I'll give you guys a hint. So there's a ship called the USS Enterprise, right? And you might be wondering, Pirate Producer, are you associating this name with Star Trek? Most people do, but do you guys know why Star Trek gave it this name? Because it is like exactly Star Trek took the name from the U.S. Navy. Does that make sense? Legitimately, they're like this is one of the most important ships in the U.S. Navy all the time. So like the Enterprise has been, they literally just recycled it. They built a new one. They're always keeping the Enterprise as like one of the main ships. It's like a default name or like a canonical name for a U.S. Navy warship, and a fucking large one too. So if you guys don't know this, the Enterprise is an aircraft carrier. It is not a corvette. Does that make sense? It is a gigantic ship. It is nuclear powered. Makes sense? And quite often it's unique too. But the point being is, in the let me just Google this actually. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the one that everybody I think knows, at least what Brave Search is showing me, that it's called the HMS Vanguard. Right? And do you guys know what USS means? Can anybody guess what USS means here? Thank you on YouTube for the commentary. Okay, nobody knows. Okay, I'll just write it out. USS means here, and I'll just erase these now. I do like using the red though into this lamp. You can put me back on main screen, Mr. Producer. USS means United States ship. The United States, I think, possessive ship. And HMS means His Majesty's ship. Did you guys know that? So, like, in Britain, still to this day, the Navy ships get the designation His Majesty or Her Majesty's ship back when Queen Elizabeth II was alive. So now they have a king. It goes back to the masculine. But yeah, that's what the prefix is. They didn't have public property, they had royal property. Why do I bring this up and why did I give you examples? Okay, because before the Federal Reserve existed, the United States had a central bank 70 years before this, and it was called the SBUSA. So if you ever see SBUSA, do you guys know what this stands for? It's an acronym. I might have dropped this knowledge before. I can't believe you guys tangented me into like a small history lesson. I know, I agree. I can't believe you guys tangented me into a small history lesson because I was going to talk about PYRESWAP, but again, this is arguably, yeah, if you get me going on this stuff, I won't stop. Okay, do not know. All right, I'll tell you guys, and let me see how blue looks. Did I already try that? Yeah, not bad. I'm not going to write out what USA means, right? Okay. Let me see how this looks in my own glasses. Yeah, that's legible. Second Bank of the United States. And the Second Bank of the United States of America, I believe Andrew Jackson killed it in 1836. Either that or 1832. I can never remember it, but it was during Andrew Jackson's second term. So 1836. And the point being is that the Second Bank of the United States, it did have shareholders. Did you guys know this? There was 3 guys that literally bought up a bunch of war bonds during the War of 1812, and effectively speaking, the United States at the time was doing a terrible job at banking. So what they did was, these 3 guys, the original one of them was John Jacob Astor. Do you guys know who John Jacob Astor is? He's also a historical figure in the United States. He's like an American businessman, historical figure, as a magnate. If you've ever heard of have you ever heard of a hotel chain called Waldorf Astoria? Anybody heard of Waldorf Astoria? Yeah. So Astoria. Oh, indeed. Yeah, they were the tallest building in New York until the Empire State Building. Is that right, Pyre Producer? Something like that. Well, they have Waldorf Astorias everywhere now. But yeah, I believe. Yeah, exactly. So Astoria comes from the name John Jacob Astor, the last name Astor, A-S-T-O-R. John Jacob Astor. Right. And what people don't realize is that later on they have this conspiracy, and I got to read the rest of Creature from Jekyll Island. And John Jacob Astor's descendant was supposedly he died on the Titanic. Does that make sense? So one of John Jacob Astor's descendants, so we're talking about 80 years later, he dies on the Titanic in like 1912 or 1911 or 1913. I can never remember what year it was. I want to say it was around the time of the Federal Reserve. But yeah, so Astor's descendant died on the Titanic, and people say that he was a critic of the Federal Reserve System. And it's like, people think that like that makes John Jacob Astor's descendant some type of good guy, but it honestly mean that he was a critic of the Federal Reserve because it made banking practices a public entity and not a private one, which is something that I think his grandfather or great-grandfather was a shareholder in. So it's, I think there's a lot of, I think later on when I have free time, I will read the rest of Creature from Jekyll Island. This will probably be after we get the peg, please. After we get the peg, I'll read it, and I will tie in some of the context that people don't know about the Federal Reserve. Anyways, the Federal Reserve does not have private shareholders. The second bank had private shareholders galore, and it wasn't a problem because the only frame of reference early America had was the British system. Does that make sense? So in the British system, there was members of the royal family that were shareholders in public entities because there was no public entity. It was just His Majesty's Bank. Does that make sense? Like they didn't have the concept of public property or like public entities. Does that make sense to you guys? Or that it would be managed by something that's not a owner, right? Or even like non-profit organizations, which in theory the church already existed, but you get what I'm saying. Making sense to everybody? Making sense? I don't even know where I got here with this, but yeah. So legitimately, what is the name? Okay, this is an example of the TikTok content that we're going to be able to prototype today, and it is just a imagine a 20-second to 30-second video that effectively presents 3 questions, gives 3 answers, and then at the very end reveals what the answers are. Does that make sense? So we're going to be, I don't know if we're going to be posting these today, but we will be demoing them on the same account pretty soon to see how they perform. Does that make sense to you guys? That is just a small update I have for you as far as PYRESWAP is concerned. Additionally, there is something that I'm working on building today, and I already have some stuff handled for it, and it is effectively about creating a narrative that can be applied to every single person in crypto about what PYRESWAP actually offers them. Because I've been reading a lot of books lately on marketing and or advertising, and what I realized is that when we talk about active staking and inventing active staking, This is like inventing chocolate ice cream in a world where everybody knows vanilla. Does that make sense? And like less than 1% or like a small amount of people are thinking, hey, the problem with ice cream is that we only have one flavor, right? Does that make sense? Because like nobody thinks that about staking because they can't conceive of an alternative. Does that make sense? Do you guys get what I'm saying? Right? Like I think Henry Ford says, if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses, right? So even though that we're proud of inventing active staking, and we're definitely proud of the incantation witch vault, all the appeal of incantation, the entire appeal of the incantation witch vault is the same as like introducing chocolate ice cream to a world where everybody knows vanilla. Now, some people will like chocolate a lot better, and chocolate will become their favorite ice cream for sure. But the fact of the matter is, the value of chocolate ice cream is not the thing that we want to lead with as far as getting mass appeal. So the thing that we want to get out of mass appeal, and by the way, if you guys have been listening to me for the last few weeks, we have this system now. We have this system, and we use it for making sure our ambassadors are up to speed. But we have, for those of you who don't know, and I think you guys do, in PYRESWAP Phase 1, we can consider there to be 7 opportunities, right? And 7 benefits, right? And the 7 opportunities are the 6 opportunities from the diagram, and the 7th one is speculation. Speculation is now an opportunity due to the fact that we turned decay off. Make sense? Now, of the 7 benefits, these can be derived from the 10 benefit statements that appear on PYRESWAP.com. So if you guys have been to PYRESWAP.com and you see on the intro page, it cycles through 10 different benefit statements. Have you guys seen this? Of those benefit statements, 3 of them are kind of intangible. Like one of them is like seeing the potential. One of them is like believing in something bigger than yourself. I think the other one is, I don't even remember. But the point being is that we have these 14 kind of ideas that are based around helping people understand what the appeal is of PYRESWAP. And it came to me recently, I mean very recently, this came to me all in the last week, that something that we offer that is literally something that solves a problem, like what is the biggest problem that PYRESWAP actually solves to the crypto user base in general? Like what actually is it? And I think that a lot of people don't realize that this is the broadest problem. Do you guys have any guesses? And I think Dr. Mack might know because I might have mentioned this to him on Friday. Not even that. Yeah, Maddie, not even that. Yep. Because again, Alessio, you know what? That's close. That's close. Yeah. I think that when you talk about debt consolidation, that's the biggest conceptual problem, but it's not the biggest pain point. And Javery, you're not wrong there either. You're not wrong there either, but it's also not the most emotive and compelling. It's not the most emotive and compelling problem. So when we talk about what is it? Yeah, okay. What is the broadest problem that, we'll say the GPSE even, yeah. The GPSE solves for Web3 users. It's broadest and yeah, not even forehead kisses. Not even forehead kisses, and not even that, Maddie. Not even that. But like again, it's let me get a water here. By the way, guys, did I tell you this? I don't know if I told you this. In an effort to make my own energy more consistent with the PYRESWAP show, I will now be taking pre-workout before the show. Does that make sense? So I'm only going to try to get more Alex Jonesy energy on here. I'm kidding, but I'll still be more jacked up in general. Yeah, I'm going to be taking pre-workout, not to work out. By the way, it's not even cheap pre-workout. It's the Jocko brand. Yeah, so I'll be taking pre-workout 30 minutes before the show as part of my prep so that when the show starts, like, we're just locked the fuck in. Does that make sense? Yeah. You guys are going to feel the pre-workout on your end. Does that make sense? The new goal of the PYRESWAP show is through the power of this microphone and that camera that you guys feel like you took pre-workout. Does that make sense? I'm glad you guys are on board. And that's a little secret that, you know, maybe I won't share that later when we have a much larger user base. But all of you early adopters, that's part of what you get. You get to know that, hey, by the way, 5, in an effort to make the PYRESWAP show better, I got a subscription to the Wall Street Journal, and I started taking pre-workout. Because we're going to fucking make it, by the way. We're going to fucking make it. Yeah. But anyways, back to the question. What is the broadest problem that the GPSC solves for Web3 users? Yeah. And I want you guys to think maybe more like emotive or things that kind of give people anxiety and adrenaline. Damn, we've been going about pirate. Well, this is a good one, and I feel like I'm still kind of all over the place. FOMO matters. Solana, red candles, and not even that, Alessio, but that is the red candles aspect is fucking useful. But I want you guys to know that the broadest problem that the GPSC solves, and by the way, this solves it for people who play meme coins. This solves it for Bitcoiners. Does that make sense? It solves it for Bitcoiners. It solves it for meme coiners. It solves it for, I guess, even NFT people. You know, like literally. Yeah. Javery, I have heard about it, but I'll tell you this. The Soul Tomb project, and I'll just address this real quick. If they don't have terminal utility, they will collapse. Does that make sense? They might collapse in the first month because there's going to be enough people that are going to be, let's put it this way. Yeah. So, like, they're not really helping us. They might be like, oh shit, there's a tomb fork. First of all they're gonna do is fuck over a new group of people that are gonna hate tomb forks in like before the end of 2024. Does that make sense? Like, the chance they would last longer than a month is beyond me, because there's gonna be people out there that are gonna play hardball. I myself would do it if I wasn't so fucking, you know, trying to be a bastion of morality and ethics in this space. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I encourage you guys to do it if you want. Like, go over there and just, like, bully it to death. Like, arguably, letting people know the problem, and you can go to their server and say, if there's no terminal utility, it'll collapse. Like, I don't give a fuck if you FUD the project, to be honest. Yeah. If they, and by the way, guys, I'll tell you guys this too. Here is, in fact, the acronym we're going to use in the future. It's called SSP. SSP. Do you guys know what SSP stands for? I'll tell you. Seigniorage hyphen share primitive. Seigniorage share primitive. This is literally the technical term we will use to refer to tomb forks and their descendants in the future. Because by itself, it's not a complete project. Understand it to be a primitive. Does that make sense? It's a seigniorage share primitive. If you don't give this tokenomic system a fucking use case, it's nothing. It's nothing. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, it's kind of like having a car's engine is meant to have wheels and tires that connect it to the ground. If you don't connect those tires to the ground, everybody's just like pressing the gas pedal to see how fast the pistons pump. All you're doing is just wasting fuel. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Like, there's no point to it. You're just making noise. But people think that, like, it's a piñata, so who cares, right? Because meme coins are piñatas too. But anyways, in the future, if you guys remember, I think it was my Dow King interview, I was talking about the acronym to use. I think SSP is going to be the one that we use. So more on that way later. We'll have to get to Peg before you hear me say this again. I'm not going to rewrite the docs of 2-ohm, 3-ohm, Z-ohm, Frozen Tomb, Snow Tomb, Dibs, Ribs, Affogato, Hoggy, etc., for a while, but when we do, we talk about this being a seigniorage share primitive. That has to be the paradigm shift that people see. Otherwise, you guys get it. Anyways, so Soul Tomb, I wish them luck, but like they're just upon, you know, without that, they are a wildcat bank. They are in fact just Ponzi schemes. They're pissing in their own mouth. It's arguably like committing fraud. I don't know. Like I don't really expect it to go anywhere. So okay. So I have seen it at least, and that's what I'm not gonna try to like waste any more time talking about Sol Tomb. Oh yeah, Maddie, we're not even talking about utility either. Yeah, we're also not talking about utility. Yeah, like the people who care about utility, that's stuff that they can kind of like find on their own. I don't know if you noticed this, Maddie. We don't talk about terminal utility in the PYRESWAP docs because it's just not what people care about. Like I tried to give them in the short version, like the amount they would need to understand the project, like as little as possible. I didn't think about like you also need to make them motivated to understand the project too. Does that make sense? Which is, by the way, this is where this next component comes in. So, what do you guys think is the broadest problem that PYRESWAP and its tokens are able to solve? And I'll tell you guys what it is. Because this is a problem that Bitcoiners have, meme coiners have, NFT people have, you name it. Everybody in Web3 has this problem. That's it. Not knowing when to sell. Yeah. So like right now, does anybody know what Bitcoin's new peak is going to be? Yeah. Is it going to be 100 grand? Is it going to be 120? Is it going to be 180? Is it going to be 240? Does anybody know? I'll tell you this. No. The answer is no. Michael Saylor doesn't know. Breedlove doesn't know. Fucking Pompliano doesn't know. Yeah. So then think about this. Bitcoin has a little bit of theoretics behind it. What about when it comes to a meme coin? Electronic, well, that particular 1 million price point, first of all, he said it would happen by 2020, right? And then on top of that, he was trying to basically describe what the energy cost would be to make the token worth, over $1 billion. But the fact of the matter is that you have to predict the cost of energy and like how to mine it. I think that Macri's prediction was based around energy efficiency, kind of like not making any gains in the 2140 years. But I'll tell you this, it is quite feasible to make Bitcoin over $1 million. Yeah, like that's not unlikely at all. And remember, Electronic, they're not going to stop debasing the dollar. Do you guys understand that? Like, so are they going to stop debasing the dollar? If not, oh well, you know what I mean? Like if they're not going to stop debasing it, then Bitcoin will keep going up. Does that make sense? Anyways, not knowing when to sell is the biggest problem. Yeah. Well, Jay, once we fucking get PYRESWAP past phase 1, I will be more transparent about the roadmap for my entire life. Let's put it that way. Because I don't want to fucking, inject too much hopium, but like proving my theoretics here definitely creates more opportunities in the future, because this is not my largest ambition. It is definitely larger than the average dApp launcher's ambition, but I just want you guys to know that for scale. Does that make sense? Yeah, my smallest ambition is a $1 billion market cap project, okay? Not at this time. Yeah, I'm not holding, I think I sold all of my Bitcoin back in 2023 for this project. Yeah, I don't think I'd a gain either. Yeah. I'll tell you this. I have another, a long time ago in 2021, I had a Facebook group, and I had about 120 people in there listening to me, and I was teaching them like the most brainless strategy on how to make money with Bitcoin. And basically I told them, you always buy at below 67% of the all-time high, right? Right, you just keep buying whenever it's below, and then you sell when it's double what you fucking paid for it or more. Does that make sense? So like as soon as you go above never mind. Yeah. So sorry. You buy below 47,000. So I told everybody else, like in my group, like, hey, it's above 94. This is your sell zone. Does that make sense? Yeah, but more on that later. I can fucking teach that strategy when we're not focusing on PYRESWAP. Does that make sense? There is a brainless way to invest in crypto, but it just involves you realizing it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, and you're in fact kind of robbing the people who don't have maturity. It is just, I'm not even gonna say robbing, but you just have to know how to buy while you're going into a recession, and then keep buying, and then stop buying when it goes up, right? And then you learn to sell. You have to just learn to be out of sync with everybody else, and then that's when you make the money. Anyways, not knowing when to sell is a problem that PYRESWAP solves for everybody in Web3. Does that make sense? And how do you guys know, like how, yeah, how? Good question, Javery, yeah. How? Well, Javery, do you remember seeing our opportunity diagram and what the 6 things on there were? Yeah, okay. So does anybody remember what those 6 things were? Let's see, do we have more? Thank you, Sinky420 here on Kick. Yeah, IWV, MEAD. Then we talk about liquidity and Genesis, right? Let me think about, hang on. Oh, then you have seigniorage, which is the boardroom. Does anybody remember number 6? And of course, speculation is there too. But yeah, what's the last one that I haven't mentioned? That's the one we're talking about. I would believe that as well, Tendai, and that's the kind of stuff that nobody looks at. Yeah, I know what you mean. I believe I have read that before, and legitimately, I even have a simpler one than that, if that makes sense. Yeah, like it's just like, it's not meant to be optimized or even active. It's meant to be like, can I make money brainlessly with Bitcoin? And it's actually not that hard. I won't keep talking about Bitcoin right now though, okay? But yeah, the last one in the opportunity diagram, for those of you guys, and the thing is I realized we haven't focused on this at all. We haven't focused on this at all, but this is the thing that actually is able to help as many people as possible. The IWV is not going to appeal to everybody. Metertrage is not going to appeal to everybody because Metertrage is scarce, so is the IWV. Does that make sense? Right? Like, it's like, you're either going to get good at Metertrage or you're never going to figure it out, right? Or you're going to get good at the IWV or you're like, you might never touch it. Make sense? And that's okay. That's okay. The project does not need 100% of the user base to be good at these 2 things. It's meant to spread people out. Make sense? It's meant to have variety in its value, right? I'm going to go back to the red marker because I just like the way it looks. Here, I think I'm going to get one of these erasers too instead of using the cloth. Okay. Fundamental analysis. Yeah. Fundamental analysis, because it can be taught at this stage in phase 1 extremely easily. Does that make sense? Let me ask you this, Javery. Javery asked me how. How do you know it's time to sell Pyre Phantom? Like, if you wanted to, like, get rid of a lot, what price would you be selling it at, Javery? Yeah, what indication would you look at to, like, okay, maybe it's time to liquidate a lot of it? Right? Maybe just turn it into Phantom. Maybe just turn it into something else. Maybe sell some and then make liquidity or whatever. But yeah, what would you look at? What indicator would you think of that, like, okay, now it's time to sell Pyre Phantom? Thank you, Jordan's Cryptocurrency News, best project. I appreciate that a lot. Have I done an interview with you? I appreciate your support a lot. Is that what it is, Javery? Javery, would you not say that there's like an ideal selling zone? Yeah. Thank you, Zonic. Yes. Yeah, like what price do you know it's not going to go above? Yeah. Yeah, like what price do you know it's not going to go above, right? Like it's going to literally have resistance at that price. $200? Yeah. Thank you, Zonic. Yes, I should hope that it has resistance at 200. But even lower than 200. Anybody got a guess? Anywhere lower than 200? I want you guys to put your thinking caps on. Indeed, 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 indeed. Yeah. Indeed, indeed. Seabiscuit is saying 80%, which I believe he means 0.8 TWAP, and he also refers to 1.01. The vibratile range. Wouldn't you guys agree? Right? Peg. You would probably sell around peg. You would probably sell if it got close enough to peg and you didn't want to wait for other people to sell in front of you. Does that make sense? You know the price is not going to go past that, right? Like, you guys know how that works, right? And I think some people, for Pyre Phantom, Pyre BNB, Pyre AVAX, the way that we make the price crash is through going arcane. So it doesn't work the same way like a print. Rather, if Pyre Phantom continues to kind of pump over peg, and the people that are in arcane are able to like continue making more money, the rest of the user base, by the way, larger group, they will in fact drag the night coins down to the metatrage range just to metatrage with like large fucking margins. Does that make sense? Like, the knights will crash Pyre Phantom down. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So like, the fact of the matter is, the selling range for Pyre Phantom is probably between 0.8 and like 1.2. Does that make sense to you guys? Because as soon as it goes too high, it'll start getting metatrage, and you guys know what happens when metatrage happens, right? Yeah. So the problem that PYRESWAP solves in the broadest, like literally, how can PYRESWAP help any single crypto investor? PYRESWAP has coins where you know when to sell. Does that make sense? So legitimately, this opportunity didn't show up for me until, again, I was reading books, filling my head with new ideas and new strategies, and then I realized, holy shit, we've been going about this all wrong. Does that make sense? I've been trying to advertise active staking, the feature, and the benefit, the yield, right? But rather, think about, like, what's the problem they all have? Like, every single person on Twitter, they all have this problem. They do not know when to sell. Does that make sense? You can send this to, I'm not going to show you guys how we're solving this problem yet. Well, let's put it this way. I will be, it will involve me doing a bit of a write-up and then me doing a video for it as well. And this write-up in this video is something that, one, all of our Twitter ambassadors are going to be armed with, and I'm also going to arm you guys with it, because when you guys go on Twitter and you can basically say, you can enter any conversation talking about any token. Doesn't have to be our tokens at all. And you can literally say, hey, I have this link right here, and it's a quick explanation on how to tell when to sell. In fact, I'll tell you guys this. Since I can already see you guys drooling at the mouth. Earlier this morning, I bought 3 domains. Okay, I'm going to tell you what domains I bought. I bought howtotellwhentosell.com, howtotellwhentosell.xyz, and I bought howtotellwhentosell.info. And legitimately, do you guys know what a squeeze page is? Does anybody here know anything about content marketing? Do you guys know anything about, okay, have you guys ever bought something online where it's like, you click on something and it's like you either get like a these websites would be something called a lead magnet. Does that make sense? Do you guys know what a lead magnet is? Anyways, these websites, they would have no PYRESWAP branding. They would have no Senior Circus branding. They would literally start off by explaining to people. By the way, the subtitle is crypto profiting without crypto panicking. Does that make sense? How to tell when to sell. Crypto profits without crypto panics, right? Just this really smoothly delivered tagline, right? I haven't decided if it's crypto profiting without crypto panicking or crypto profits without crypto panics. The second one is kind of more, it's got a little bit more delivery, right? Crypto profits without crypto panics, right? Better sloganing, right? Then, of course, you make it so that people understand how long it takes to read. So I don't know if you guys know this. People like reading stuff when it says 3-minute read or like 4-minute read. Anyways, I'm not going to go into every detail with you. But the point being is, you basically explain to people and you tell them a bit of a story. You say, hey, we've all been there, right? And I know a lot of you guys have if you guys held 2Share through $8,000. We've all been there, right? It's like you have the number on your computer this morning looks like your wildest dream. You pinch yourself. Wow, you finally picked the winner. Does that make sense? This is going to change your life. You can feel your hair standing on end. Your heart's racing, right? And squeeze pages in marketing, they use emotive language like that. In fact, me just saying it out loud, I could feel my hair standing on end from me saying it. I don't know if did that translate? Did anybody else feel that? Anyways, when you tell the story and you get like compelling like that, anybody who reads the squeeze page or they watch the video, because I'm going to make a video with me narrating it, probably not exactly this format, but I'll probably like move the camera. Maybe the set will, okay, let's not get into that detail right now. Short video, 5 minutes, but a little bit higher production. And you basically tell the story that everybody identifies with, where they held a fucking project through the crash. Does that make sense? Because I want you to know that I think the majority of people that are in Web3 long term, meaning that they would be able to figure out PYRESWAP anyway, they've all had that happen. Does that make sense? Like they've all been really, really up before, and then at some point they just held, and it just kept going down, and they held, and they held, and they held. Because there was always that meme of it being a hodler, right? Does that make sense? So I think a lot of people have been burned by holding. Make sense? And since we don't care, okay, we're not scared of people selling our token. So like, why would I have a problem? Okay, the point being is, imagine that this is like a 5-page, assume it's 5 pages, but it's not like the type of writing that I do where it's highly technical. It's storytelling, it's compelling, it's emotive, probably use a larger font. And the point being is, at the very end, the reason we have .com, .xyz, and .info is that we're gonna build, I'm already like a good fraction into writing this too, hang on. You basically explain that the reason, the way people analyze price in crypto is all done through TA right now. But in real finance where people are, where the real money's at, they use fundamental analysis. And then what you basically explain is the reason institutional capital is always grifting you is because they know what fundamental analysis is and retail crypto does not. So then what you explain is that there's a token out there right now called PYREBNB or PyrePhantom. Whatever URL you're on, it'll shift the story into talking about PYREBNB, PyrePhantom, or PyreAVAX. Make sense? Hang on. Sorry, I peeled a bit of plastic off this marker and I needed to compulsively throw it away. I wasn't gonna just twist it in my fingers for the rest of the show. Anyways, we got 10 minutes left. Point being is, you take a minute to, with a video, tell them a story that largely applies to themselves. You bring them through the emotions of the pain of it happening again, and then you explain that there's a token where you're not gonna have that problem. Make sense? And granted, I know that I hyperinflated it on everybody in fucking August. Like, I know that, right? But the fact of the matter is that you guys who were early, you already were aware that we talked a lot about how red candles can't kill it. And I think if you're listening now, you definitely believe that. But the point being is that now most of our charts look more like uptrends. Does that make sense? The market is starting to get bullish again. And this allows, this new vector, this new strategy, it allows PYREBNB, PyrePhantom, and PyreAVAX to be inserted into more conversations. Does that make sense? Because legitimately, if they want to learn about metertrage and they want to learn about active staking and they want to learn about these things, those are all icing on the cake. Does that make sense? But the cake is actually knowing when to sell, because nobody else in crypto can offer you that. Does that make sense? That's what we offer that other products don't offer. Like, we let you know on the dashboard when to sell. When the TWAP is getting close, right? As the ratio gets nearer, that's your selling zone. Make sense? And it's because we have fundamental analysis. So I'm not going to get into all that right now because I'm still kind of like drafting it out long form on more whiteboards than this. But I want to say, let me just say before the end of the week, that seems realistic for me. Not only will you guys, who are, I guess you could say, our hardcore user base, be armed with these things, but also our Twitter ambassadors will be as well. Because instead of just going onto Twitter and just seeing a new project get retweeted and it's a new, like, you know, feature blast or whatever, rather, like, how can you make something appealing to every person in crypto? You basically talk to them about one of their biggest problems, which is they don't know when to sell, because every nightmare that they have about crypto is that they sold the wrong time. Does that make sense? They're like, I should have sold. That's what everybody thinks when they fucking when it goes down, right? Oh, I should have sold then. I just didn't know when to sell. Does that make sense? They have that narrative all in their head, right? You guys have it. I arguably I have it too. Sometimes I sold the right time. Sometimes I didn't sell at the right time, right? But it's okay. Had I sold the right time, I wouldn't have been motivated to build PYRESWAP in the GPSC. So, like, there's a silver lining to that cloud for me. But for most people who aren't me, they just think about buying and selling. So, like, if they just know when to sell, that is going to be what they can focus on, because they just want to swing trade in the first place. First of all, us getting a crowd of these people, that'll end up being what builds our vibrantility in the first place, because, like, their own impulsiveness about buying and selling is what we kind of want to create the velvet rope pattern in the first place. Does that make sense? Like, having a whole bunch of people that are speculating is useful for the project. It brings volume, it brings the rope pattern, and then of course it brings token holders, it brings market cap. You guys get it. Anyways, so we're definitely we're fucking getting big. We're getting big, yeah. Like, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it better than you guys ever imagined. I hope it answers your questions. Okay, we could talk about how okay, the Q3 GDP numbers are gonna come out this week. The Bitcoin pizza, by the way, as soon as Bitcoin crosses 100 grand, the Bitcoin pizzas are now worth $1 billion. Okay, today is an extreme greed day, so CMC ranks at 87. Alternate.me is at 82. I was gonna talk about tariffs, because that's a thing. I was going to talk about MicroStrategy. I'm going to say that for tomorrow. I'm going to end the show now if nobody has any questions, because the pre-workout has me a little extra caffeinated, and I need to end the show now, if you guys get what I'm saying. Do you guys have any questions? No questions? No questions? No questions? Thank you so much for coming to the PYRESWAP show. It's going to be great. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah, we're going to win. Bye.